Okay, so the next one on the list is the throat. The throat is linked to expression, it's linked to the voice, it's linked to speech, and it's really linked also to manifestation, and really expression and manifestation are one and the same thing. The sound actually has always been linked to creation, whether we look in Christianity and in the beginning there was the word, or whether we look in more of the yogic side of things and this idea of paravak, and this kind of also this idea of the primordial sound, you always find creation, manifestation coming from there, and coming from the voice and this ether element. And so in the body graph, it's the one center which is really connected to that, which is why manifestors, are manifestors, because they have one of the motor centers, one of the energy centers connected to that throat. But the throat can be defined also, for example, connected to the Ajna, connected to the G Center. And so whether you're a manifestor or not, if you have a defined throat, the question is, what wants to be expressed? What wants to come into manifestation? And in your case, you have the Ajna and you have the G Center connected to that throat. And so I'm curious if you can relate to that and if that makes sense with your own experience.
Yeah, for sure. The connections that you have from your G to other centers, in my case, as you said, the Ajna and the G, is the place that you are going to be speaking from. Yeah, so like whenever I'm expressing something, it's going to come either from my deep sense of identity and direction, which is almost like a spiritual kind of thing, or it's going to come from the structuring of my mind, the structuring on my Ajna, which is, in my case, the channel 23, which is a channel of structuring. So you have to pay attention into that when you're speaking. Where is that going to be coming from? And also, like, am I speaking from my open centers too? Yeah. Whenever you speak, like that could be a shadow aspect. So that's something to take into consideration. And also the fact that if you have one of the motors connected to the throat and you're a manifestor or a manifesting generator, it's a different kind of expression. It's an expression that can initiate, that you can start with, that you can influence other people directly in that sense. However, if you don't have a motor connected there, there's no real energy there for you to voice that, so it needs to be also invited, or you need to have an opening for that, which translates also in the openness of the center. I guess you can talk more about that.
Yeah, well, I have it undefined, and there are two shadows to it. Basically, it's an inconsistent sense of self-expression, basically. And it can be either underdoing or overdoing this thing of speech. And so you end up with, and I used to be much more on that side, which would be to be, especially being a projector as well, to just not speak much at all. And so in a social situation, I would be kind of like just observing everyone and not really talking much at all. But then there's the other side of it, which is trying to attract attention, actually, and talking too much, just constant blah, 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 and just talking too much and with no substance to it as well, just to attract attention, or sometimes just to get rid of a certain pressure, basically, to talk all the time. But the gift of it really is the ability to adapt speech to certain situations, to certain people, and that can come out super handy. You in my case, for example, it's a certain gift of being able to be a mediator between people, literally being like a translator. I notice very often, like if there's an argument between two people, it's like they're not speaking the same language, and so with the open throat, you're able to feel into one person how they speak and what it actually means deep down, and translate it for the other person and how they need to hear it. So it's much more about, for people with this openness, it's much more about the quality of speech rather than quantity. And so that means being a great listener and knowing what to say, when to say it, how to say it, based on who you're saying it to and based on the context and all of that. And so yeah, it can really be a great gift, but it's the kind of speech that needs to be invited. Yes, it's important with this openness. It needs to be invited. So in this situation, for example, well, you have it, defined. I have it undefined, and so you would be better, for example, being the radio host or podcast host, basically, and asking me questions and me answering rather than the other way around. Mm-hmm. Yeah.